237 Mongol soldiers died without understanding what was killing them. Tsushima Island, autumn of 1274. Commander Arban watched his invasion force bleed. A veteran of 40 campaigns across Asia and China, leader of the Mongol vanguard in the first invasion of Japan, he had seen armies fall, empires crumble, fortresses burn, but he had never seen anything like what was happening on this small island. His men were dying one by one, killed by someone they never saw coming, killed by methods they never expected, killed by what his scouts kept reporting was an old man, a single old man with gray hair and a limp, someone the Mongols had nicknamed the Grandfather when they first spotted him, assuming he was harmless, a survivor hiding in the ruins. By the 9th day, Arban's force of 800 warriors was down to 563, 237 dead, and he still had not captured or killed the Grandfather, had barely even seen him, just glimpses. An old man moving through burned villages and forests, leaving bodies behind. Arban looked at his remaining officers and asked the question no Mongol commander ever expected to ask. How is one elderly Japanese man destroying our vanguard? How is Grandfather killing trained warriors who conquered half the world? The man they called Grandfather was named Tomo. He was 63 years old. Former samurai who had retired 15 years earlier after losing the use of his left leg in battle. He walked with a cane. His hands shook from old wounds. His eyesight was failing. He was the last person anyone would expect to fight, which was exactly why he was winning. Because Tomo understood something the Mongols had forgotten after decades of easy conquests. That war is not about strength or speed or youth. War is about knowing your terrain, understanding your enemy, and being willing to die slowly, if it means your enemy dies first. And over 9 days on Tsushima, Tomoe proved that an old man who knows where to stand and when to strike could kill more efficiently than an army that only knows how to charge forward. Arban never found out that Tomoe was not fighting to win, was not trying to save the island. Tsushima was already lost. The Mongol invasion force was too large, too organized. Tomoe was fighting to delay, to slow the invasion enough that messages could reach the mainland, that Japan could prepare defenses. He was sacrificing himself one day at a time, using the last 9 days of his life to buy time for a nation that had already written him off as too old to matter. And when those 9 days ended, when Tomo's body was finally found in the ruins of a burned temple, surrounded by 43 dead Mongol soldiers who had cornered him in his last stand, Commander Arban looked at the corpse and understood something terrifying. That if one old man could kill 237 of his warriors, what would young Japanese samurai do when the full invasion force arrived? The realization contributed to the Mongol decision to withdraw, to delay, to reconsider. And that delay gave Japan the time to prepare the defenses that would eventually defeat the Mongol invasions entirely, all because Grandfather refused to die quietly. Before we continue, drop a comment telling us where you're watching from, and if you haven't subscribed yet, hit that button right now. We're pushing to reach 1,000 subscribers, and your support makes all the difference. Now let's see how a retired samurai with a cane became the most lethal defender Japan had never planned for. The story begins 48 years earlier. Spring of 1226 in the Kyushu region of southern Japan, in a small domain controlled by the Shoni clan, a minor samurai family that served the Kamakura shogunate, the political entity that actually ruled Japan while the emperor remained a ceremonial figure. Kyushu was frontier territory, the western edge of Japan, facing Korea and the Asian mainland. It was considered a backwater posting, far from the political centers of Kyoto and Kamakura, but it was home. Tomoe was born in 1211, first son of a low-ranking samurai named Kaneshiga, a man who served the Shoni clan as a garrison soldier. Tomoe's childhood was ordinary for a samurai son. He learned swordsmanship, archery, horseback riding, the martial skills expected of the warrior class, but he also learned something less common. His father was obsessed with terrain. Kaneshiga had fought in several small wars between rival clans, and he had noticed that battles were not won by the best swordsmen, but by warriors who understood the ground they fought on. A man standing on high ground beats a man standing low. A man fighting in terrain he knows beats a man in unfamiliar territory. A man who positions himself correctly before battle starts beats a man who just charges in bravely. Remember this, Tomo. Positioning is everything. Courage without position is just death. Tomoe absorbed this teaching, spent his youth studying the terrain around his family's village, learning which hills gave advantage, which valleys were death traps, which forests provided cover, which rivers could be forded safely. By age 15, he could navigate the entire region blindfolded, knew every trail, every rock formation, every tactical advantage. His father was proud. "You see the land like a warrior should, not just as background but as weapon. This will keep you alive when others die." At 19, Tomoe participated in his first real battle, a border dispute between the Shoni clan and a rival family. The fight took place in a narrow valley. The enemy had superior numbers, 40 samurai against the Shoni force of 25. The Shoni commander wanted to retreat, avoid engagement, but Tomoe noticed something. The valley had steep sides, loose rock on the slopes. If a few men could climb to the ridge and start rock slides at the right moment, they could trap the enemy in the valley, turn superior numbers into a disadvantage. He suggested this to his father. Kainshig brought it to the commander. The commander, desperate, agreed. Tomoe led 3 men up the slope, positioned them, waited until the enemy force was deep in the valley, then triggered the slides. Rocks fell, blocked the valley exits, trapped 40 samurai in a confined space. The Shoni force attacked from one end. The trapped enemies could not maneuver, could not use their numbers. Within an hour, the battle was over. The Shoni won despite being outnumbered. And Tomoe had proven his father's teaching. Terrain mattered more than numbers. Over the next 30 years, Tomoe fought in 17 battles. All small conflicts, border disputes, succession wars, the endless small violence of medieval Japan. He never became famous, never led armies, never achieved glory. But he survived every battle, earned a reputation as a tactician who understood positioning. Commanders would consult him before engagements. "Tomoe, look at this terrain. Tell me where to fight." He would study the ground, identify advantages, suggest positioning. More often than not, his advice led to victory, not glorious victory, just effective victory, the kind that kept soldiers alive and enemies dead. In 1259, at age 48, Tomoe was ambushed during a patrol. 3 Ronin, masterless samurai turned bandits, attacked him on a forest trail. The fight was brutal. Tomoe killed 2, wounded the 3rd but took a sword cut to his left leg. The cut severed muscle, damaged bone. Tomoe survived, but his leg never healed correctly. He could walk, but with a limp, could not run, could not ride a horse effectively for a samurai. This was career-ending. He could not fight in formation, could not charge in cavalry, could not perform the physical demands of active military service. At 48, Tomoe was forced to retire. The Shoni clan gave him a small pension, a tiny house in a village on Tsushima Island. Tsushima was a small island between Japan and Korea. It belonged to the Shoni clan but was even more remote than Kyushu, a fishing and farming community, strategic only as an early warning post if Korea ever threatened invasion. For a samurai, being posted to Tsushima was like being forgotten. For a retired samurai, it was exile. Tomoe accepted it without complaint, moved to Tsushima with his wife Akiko, a woman he had married late in life, age 45. They had no children, just each other. They lived quietly. Tomoe helped train the local militia, taught young men basic swordsmanship, but mostly he walked the island, studied its terrain, mapped every hill and valley and beach. It was habit, something he could not stop doing, understanding the ground beneath his feet. Akiko asked him once, "Why do you still study the land? You are retired, there will be no more battles." Tomoe smiled. "I study because I cannot stop, because terrain is the only thing I understand better than dying, and because you never know when knowledge will save your life." It was a joke. They both laughed. Neither believed Tsushima would ever see battle. The island was too remote, too unimportant. The world had no reason to come here. Then in 1268, everything changed. Kublai Khan, grandson of Genghis Khan, completed his conquest of China, established the Yuan dynasty, became emperor of the largest empire in human history, and looked east, toward Japan. Khan sent envoys to Japan demanding submission, demanding that Japan become a tributary state, pay taxes to the Mongol Empire, acknowledge Khan as overlord. The Japanese shogunate refused, insulted the envoys, sent them back with rejection. Khan was not accustomed to rejection. Every nation in Asia had submitted or been destroyed. Japan would be no exception. He ordered preparations for invasion, massive preparations, ships, troops, supplies, the largest amphibious assault in history to that point, and the first target would be Tsushima Island, the closest Japanese territory to Korea, the stepping stone to Kyushu, the gateway to Japan. News of the Mongol threat reached Tsushima in 1273. 6 years after Khan's first envoys were rejected, the shogunate sent warnings to all Western domains: prepare for possible invasion, strengthen defenses, train militias. But the warnings were vague. Nobody knew if invasion would actually happen. If it did happen, when it would come or how large it would be. Tsushima's governor, a minor Shoni clan administrator named Sukekuni, tried to prepare. The island had a garrison of 80 samurai, mostly young, inexperienced, assigned to Tsushima because they were not good enough for more important posts. Sukekuni called them together. We may face Mongol invasion. We must strengthen the island's defenses, build watchtowers, train the militia, prepare evacuation routes for civilians. The samurai nodded, began half-hearted preparations, but nobody really believed the Mongols would come. Tsushima was too small, too insignificant. Why would the largest empire in history bother with one tiny island? Tomo watched the preparations with concern. He was 62 years old now, his leg worse, his eyesight fading, but his understanding of terrain was sharper than ever. He had spent 14 years mapping Tsushima, knew every defensive position, every ambush point, every escape route. He approached Sukekuni. Governor, if the Mongols come, 80 samurai cannot hold this island. The population is 3,000. We need to evacuate civilians immediately, move them to the mountains, hide them in caves, leave only fighters on the coast. Sukekuni listened politely, dismissed the advice. Tomoe, you are retired. You have not fought in 15 years. The young samurai are trained, capable. We will defend the island properly, with honor. If we evacuate, we show weakness. Samurai do not run. Tomo tried again. Governor, honor does not stop arrows. The Mongols conquered China. Defeated armies of hundreds of thousands. Our 80 samurai will last perhaps one day. Evacuation is not cowardice. It is survival. Sukekuni's face hardened. Enough. You are dismissed. Your service is appreciated, but your advice is not needed. The garrison will handle defense. You should focus on your retirement. Tomo left, frustrated but not surprised. He had seen this pattern before. Young samurai who valued honor over tactics. Commanders who preferred dying bravely to surviving cleverly. He could not force them to listen, but he could prepare himself. Over the next year, Tomo quietly built his own defense plan. He identified 13 locations on Tsushima where small forces could ambush larger ones. Narrow passes where 10 men could hold against hundreds. Cliffs where rock slides could be triggered. Forests where visibility was poor. Beaches where landing was difficult. He marked each location in his mind, memorized approaches and escape routes. He was not planning to fight. He was too old, too crippled. But if fighting came, he wanted to know where to stand to make it count. He also cached supplies, small hidden stockpiles throughout the island, arrows in a cave near the north shore, spare swords in a ruined shrine, food and water in an abandoned house. He told no one about this, not even Akiko. She knew he was preparing something, asked what he was doing. He replied vaguely, "Just making sure I can help if needed." She did not press. After 40 years together, they understood each other. She knew he was worried, knew he would not share the worry because he did not want her to feel it. The invasion came on the 5th day of the 10th month, 1274, early morning, fog covering the sea. The first warning was a fisherman who saw ships, dozens of ships, hundreds of ships. He ran to the garrison, reported, "The sea is covered with ships, more ships than I can count. They are coming here." Sukekuni ordered the garrison to the coast. 80 samurai assembled at the main beach, the landing point they had fortified. They watched the fog lift, watched the ships approach, watched and understood that they were going to die. Because the ships kept coming, hundreds of them, carrying thousands of soldiers. The Mongol invasion force for Tsushima alone was 800 warriors, professional soldiers who had conquered nations, against 80 young Japanese samurai who had never fought a real battle. The Mongols landed in waves. Their first wave was 200 soldiers. They hit the beach in organized formation, shields locked, moving like a machine. The Japanese garrison charged, brave, honorable, doomed. The battle lasted 30 minutes. The samurai fought with swords and honor. The Mongols fought with discipline and arrows, crossbows that fired bolts faster than Japanese bows. Soldiers who fought in coordinated units rather than individual duels. The result was massacre. 80 samurai died. Some fought well, killed a few Mongols, but they were overwhelmed, outmaneuvered, destroyed. Governor Sukakuni died in the first minutes. Cut down by crossbow bolts, the garrison commander died trying to rally his men. The young samurai died learning that courage without tactics was just performance art for death. Tomo watched from a hill overlooking the beach, too far to help, too old to make a difference even if he had been close. He watched the slaughter with cold assessment, noting how the Mongols fought, how they moved, how they organized. He saw their strengths, discipline, coordination, superior weapons, and he saw their weaknesses. They expected resistance to be organized, to come from formations and positions. They expected samurai to fight like samurai, brave and stupid, charging into death. They expected defenders to announce themselves, to fight honorably, to die predictably. Tomo thought about his father's teaching. Positioning is everything, and added his own understanding. If you cannot win by fighting, you win by being where your enemy does not expect, by fighting in ways they do not anticipate, by being old when they expect young, slow when they expect fast, invisible when they expect obvious. As the Mongols secured the beach and began moving inland, burning the coastal village, killing or capturing civilians who had not evacuated, Tomoe made his decision. He could not save Tsushima. The island was already lost, but he could delay the invasion, could slow the Mongols enough that messages might reach Kyushu, that Japan might prepare, could hurt the enemy enough that they became cautious, hesitant. He had 9 days before his supplies ran out, 9 days before his old body gave out completely, 9 days to kill as many Mongols as possible using terrain, surprise, and the fact that nobody expected a crippled old man to be dangerous. He kissed Akiko goodbye, told her to hide in the mountain caves with the other civilians. I will not return, do not wait for me. When this is over, go to your sister in Kyushu, live quietly. Remember me when you can, she cried, argued. He left anyway, walking with his cane toward the Mongol invasion force, looking like exactly what he was, a harmless old man, which made him the most dangerous thing on the island. The Mongol vanguard of 800 soldiers moved inland systematically. They split into 4 groups of 200, each group assigned to secure a different section of Tsushima, burn villages, capture or kill resistors, establish control. Commander Arbin led the northern group. He was 41 years old, had fought in 16 campaigns, conquered territory from Korea to Persia. Tsushima was supposed to be easy, a stepping stone, a training exercise for the inexperienced troops before the real invasion of Japan. His orders were clear. Secure the island in 3 days. Establish a forward base. Prepare for the main fleet. Tomo chose Arbin's northern group as his target, not because they were weaker, but because their route took them through terrain he knew intimately. Forests and narrow valleys where visibility was poor and ambush was easy. He positioned himself along their path, found a spot where the trail narrowed between cliffs, where 200 men would have to march in a column rather than spread out, waited hidden in the rocks above. He had 10 arrows, a bow that was old but functional. His aim was not what it used to be. His hands shook, but he was 40 feet above the trail shooting down. Gravity helped accuracy. The Mongol column entered the narrow section. Soldiers talking, laughing, confident. They had just conquered an island with barely a fight. This was easy work. Tomo waited until the column was fully committed, exits blocked by their own numbers, then he shot. The first arrow hit a soldier in the throat. He dropped without sound. The second arrow hit another in the eye. He screamed, fell. Chaos erupted. The Mongols looked around, could not see the shooter. Tomo fired 8 more arrows in 12 seconds, not fast but steady, each arrow aimed carefully. 6 more hits, 4 kills, 2 wounds, 10 arrows, 8 hits, 6 dead. The column scattered. Soldiers dove for cover. Commanders shouted orders. Find the shooter, someone is above us. Soldiers looked up, saw nothing. Tomo had already moved, crawling along the cliff edge, relocating. By the time Mongol archers returned fire at his previous position, he was 70 feet away, watching. Arbin ordered a squad to climb the cliffs, find the attacker. 12 soldiers began climbing. It was slow, difficult. Armor made them heavy. The rocks were loose. Tomo did not shoot them while they climbed. He waited until they were 30 feet up, committed, vulnerable. Then he pushed. There was a boulder near the cliff edge. Not huge, but big enough. He had positioned a wooden lever near it days earlier. He used the lever to shift the boulder. It rolled, fell, hit the cliff face, dislodged other rocks, created a small slide. The climbing soldiers were hit. Some fell, broke bones. 2 died from the fall. The others retreated. Arbin looked up at the cliffs with new respect. Whoever was up there understood terrain, understood timing, was not just shooting randomly but fighting intelligently. The Mongol column moved on, more cautiously. They exited the narrow section, spread out in open ground where ambush was harder. Tomoy let them go. He could not stop 200 men, was not trying to. He was just making them bleed, making them cautious, slowing them down. He had killed 8, wounded several more, spent 10 arrows. It took the Mongols 2 hours to clear the ambush site. That was 2 hours the invasion was delayed. He considered it a successful trade. Over the next 3 days, Tomoy hit Arbin's group 7 more times. Different locations, different methods. He used arrows when terrain allowed, used rock slides when he could trigger them. Once he used fire, waited until the Mongols camped in a dry forest, shot a fire arrow into their supply pile, started a blaze that burned their food and scattered their horses. Another time he poisoned a stream, not lethally. He was not a monster, just enough to make soldiers sick, weak, slow for a day. Every attack was different, unpredictable, designed to cause maximum disruption with minimum exposure. Tomo never stayed to fight, never let them corner him. He struck and vanished, an old man moving slowly through terrain he had mapped for 14 years, always 3 steps ahead of pursuers. By the 4th day, Arbin's force had lost 43 men, not a huge number from 200, but enough to matter. Enough to make commanders nervous. Scouts reported the attacker was an old man, one old man with gray hair and a limp. It seemed impossible, insulting. How could one elderly Japanese man be destroying a Mongol vanguard? Arbin's officers wanted to dismiss the reports, blame the casualties on bad luck, accidents. But the evidence was clear. Someone was hunting them, someone who knew the terrain perfectly, who never made mistakes, who struck when they were vulnerable and vanished before they could respond. The Mongols started calling him the Grandfather, a nickname that began as mockery but became respect tinged with fear. Grandfather was killing them, and they could not stop him. Arbin made a decision. We hunt Grandfather, dedicate 50 men, track him, find him, kill him. The rest continue securing the island, but this old man dies. He assigned his best tracker, a Mongol scout named Batar, who had hunted men across Asia. Find Grandfather, bring me his head, take as many men as you need. Batar took 20 soldiers, began tracking systematically. They found Tomo's trail on the 5th day, tracks leading into the eastern forest. Batar followed carefully. He had tracked ninja, assassins, rebels. He knew how to hunt skilled enemies. He moved slowly, checked for traps, for ambushes. He was cautious, professional. Tomo had expected this, had prepared for this. He left a trail that was too easy to follow, tracks that were slightly too obvious, broken branches that pointed direction. Batar noticed this, suspected trap, but followed anyway, because sometimes obvious trails were just trails. Sometimes paranoia was wrong. The trail led to a ruined temple, burned during the initial invasion. Batar surrounded it with his 20 men, called out, "Grandfather, we know you are here. Come out, fight with honor, or die hiding like a coward." There was silence. Batar ordered his men forward. They entered the temple carefully, found nothing. Empty rooms, burned wood, debris. Batar was confused. The trail led here, ended here. Where was Grandfather? Then one of his men noticed something. A hole in the floor, hidden under burned wood. A pit. The temple had a basement storage area. Batar approached the hole, looked down, saw darkness. This was the trap. If he went down, he would be vulnerable. But if he left, Grandfather would escape. He made a decision. Burn it. Set fire to the temple. Smoke him out. If he stays down there, he suffocates. If he comes up, we kill him. They started the fire, waited. Smoke filled the temple, poured into the pit. Time passed. No movement. No sound. Batar waited an hour. The temple burned completely. He sent men down into the pit to check. They found nothing. No body. No tunnel. No Grandfather. Batar stood in the ruins, confused, then understood. The trail was false. The pit was empty. Grandfather had never been here. This was misdirection. While Batar wasted a day at the temple, Grandfather was somewhere else, killing more of Arben's men. The realization was bitter. Batar had been outwitted by an old man, outthought by someone who understood that the best place to hide was in the enemy's assumptions. While Batar hunted a false trail, Tomo was 5 miles west, attacking a Mongol supply caravan. The invasion force needed constant supplies, food, arrows, equipment. Caravans moved from the beach to inland camps. These caravans were guarded but not heavily. 10 soldiers per caravan. The Mongols assumed the island was secured, assumed no serious threat remained. Tomoe waited along the supply route, in a forest section where the path narrowed. He had no arrows left, had used them all in previous attacks, but he had other weapons. He had terrain, he had surprise, and he had a samurai sword, old but sharp. The sword he had carried for 40 years, the sword he thought he would never use in combat again. The caravan approached, 3 ox carts, 10 Mongol soldiers. They were not alert, were talking, joking. This was easy duty, rearguard supply escort. No danger. Tomo waited until they were deep in the forest, until the trees blocked escape routes. Then he stepped onto the path ahead of them, an old man with gray hair leaning on a cane, looking lost. The Mongols saw him, laughed. "Grandfather, what are you doing here? This is Mongol territory now. Go home, old man." Tomo did not respond, just stood there. One of the Mongols approached. "Are you deaf? I said go." He reached out to push Tomo aside. Tomo moved, not fast, but precisely. His cane came up. The handle concealed a short blade. He stabbed the Mongol in the throat, pulled the blade out. The Mongol fell, blood spraying. The other 9 soldiers froze for 1 second, shocked, processing what they had just seen. 1 second was enough. Tomo drew his sword. The movement was slow. His hands shook. But the sword came free. And what happened next was not the graceful combat of young samurai. It was brutal, efficient. Murder executed by someone who had spent 40 years learning exactly where to cut to kill fastest. He killed 3 more before they reacted. Throat cuts, precise strikes that dropped men before they could draw weapons. The remaining 6 drew swords, surrounded him. Tomo did not try to fight 6 at once. He moved backward into the trees, used trunks as barriers, made them come at him 1 or 2 at a time. His legs slowed him, but his positioning was perfect. He forced them to fight in confined space, to approach from angles he controlled. He killed 2 more, took a cut to his shoulder, ignored the pain, killed another. The surviving 3 soldiers ran, abandoned the caravan, sprinted back toward their camp. Tomo let them go. He could not chase. His leg would not allow it. He stood among the bodies, breathing hard, bleeding. 7 dead Mongols, 3 escaped. He had minutes before reinforcements arrived. He searched the carts, found food, arrows, medical supplies, took what he could carry, set fire to the rest, walked into the forest, vanished before Mongol reinforcements arrived 15 minutes later to find burned carts and dead soldiers. The 3 surviving soldiers reported to Arben, "Grandfather ambushed us. He is not just a shooter, he fights with a sword. He killed 7 of us. He bleeds but does not stop. He is not normal, old man. He fights like demon." Arben listened, calculated, 8 days since landing. His force of 200 was down to 147, 53 casualties, most from grandfather's attacks. This was unacceptable. The other 3 Mongol groups had secured their sections with minimal casualties. Arben's northern section was stalled behind schedule. Command was asking questions. Arben's reputation was suffering, all because of one old man. He called a meeting of his remaining officers. "We changed tactics. Grandfather is using terrain against us, hiding in places we do not know. We stop chasing him. We force him to come to us. We find something he cannot ignore. Use it as bait. Then we kill him when he appears," one officer asked. What bait? What would an old man care about enough to abandon his advantages? Arben smiled coldly. "Civilians, we know there are civilians hiding in the mountain caves. We find them, threaten them. Grandfather will come. Old men care about protecting the weak. It makes them predictable." The next morning, Mongol patrols found the caves, discovered 200 civilians hiding there. Men, women, children, elderly, including Akiko, Tomoe's wife. The Mongols did not kill them. They dragged them to an open field, tied them to posts, set guards, then sent messengers throughout the northern section. "Grandfather, we have your people. If you want them to live, come to the field, surrender yourself. If you do not come by sunset, we start killing them, 1 per hour until you appear or they are all dead." The message reached Tomoe by midday. He was hiding in a forest 3 miles from the field, recovering from his shoulder wound, planning his next attack. The message changed everything. He could not save 200 civilians, could not fight his way through guards and free them. But if he did nothing, they would die. Slowly, publicly, to draw him out. The math was brutal. His life for 200. It was not even a difficult calculation. He was 63, crippled, bleeding, had maybe 2 days left before his body gave out completely. Those 200 had years, had families, had futures. But surrendering meant the Mongols won, meant his 9 days of resistance ended with capture and probably torture, meant everything he had accomplished would be used as propaganda. Even their best fighter surrendered. It would demoralize Japan, make the Mongols seem unstoppable. Tomoe thought about his father's teaching, positioning is everything, and realized there was one position left, one place he could stand that would accomplish everything. He could not save the civilians by fighting, but he could save them by dying correctly. He could surrender, let the Mongols think they won. Then in the moment they were celebrating, in the moment they relaxed, he could strike one final time, kill as many as possible before they killed him, turn his surrender into a trap, his death into a weapon. It was perfect positioning. The last place they would expect attack was from a surrendering prisoner, and being underestimated had been his advantage from the beginning. He walked toward the field slowly, using his cane, looking exactly like what he was, an exhausted old man who had run out of options. Mongol patrols spotted him, surrounded him, took his sword, his cane blade, searched him for weapons, found none. They dragged him to the field where the civilians were tied, where Commander Arben waited. Arben looked at grandfather, this legendary fighter who had killed 53 of his soldiers, and saw just an old man, gray hair, bloody shoulder, shaking hands, limping badly. Arben laughed. "This is grandfather. This is the demon who destroyed my vanguard. He looks like he should be tending garden, not fighting wars." Tomoe said nothing. Arben continued. "You fought well, old man. You cost me many soldiers. But resistance is over. You surrender, your people live. You will be executed, of course. But you die knowing you saved them. Is that acceptable?" Tomoe nodded. "It is acceptable. I surrender. Release the civilians." Arben signaled. Soldiers began untying the civilians, freeing them. They would be escorted to the beach, put on boats, sent to the mainland. The Mongols kept their word on this. They needed civilians alive to spread stories of Mongol power, to encourage other Japanese to surrender rather than resist. As the civilians were released, as guards relaxed, as Arben turned to order Tomo's execution, Tomo moved, not toward Arben, toward the weapons pile where his sword had been thrown. He moved fast, faster than anyone expected from a crippled old man, because for 9 days he had been exaggerating his limp, making himself seem weaker than he was, saving strength for one final movement. He reached the pile, grabbed his sword, spun, and in the 2 seconds before Mongol soldiers reacted, he killed 4 men, precise throat cuts, the kills of someone who had spent 9 days practicing on Mongol soldiers, learning exactly where to strike for fastest death. The Mongol soldiers responded instantly. 30 warriors surrounded Tomo. He was trapped in the open field. No terrain advantages, no escape routes, no ambush positions, just an old man with a sword facing 30 soldiers. The civilians screamed. Akiko screamed his name. Soldiers dragged them away, forced them toward the boats. Arben watched from safe distance. Kill him slowly. Make him suffer for breaking surrender. The soldiers advanced carefully. They had seen what grandfather could do. They surrounded him in a tight circle, stabbed with spears from multiple angles. Tomo blocked what he could, took wounds he could not avoid. Stomach, leg, arm. He kept fighting, killed 2 more soldiers, wounded 3. But the math was impossible, 30 against 1. Wounds accumulating, blood loss, exhaustion. His vision was blurring. His hands were not shaking from age anymore, but from dying. He fought for 4 minutes, felt like hours. Killed 6 soldiers total in that final stand. Wounded 9. Then a spear caught him in the back, punched through. He fell to his knees. More spears stabbed down. He collapsed. They kept stabbing, making sure when they finally stopped. Tomo was dead. His body had 17 spear wounds. His sword was still in his hand. The field was covered in his blood, and the blood of 6 Mongol soldiers he had killed in his final seconds. Arben approached the body, looked down. 59 soldiers. Grandfather killed 59 of my men in 9 days. 1 old man with a sword and a cane destroyed 1/4 of my force. This is either shameful for us, or proof that Japan has warriors we do not understand. I am not sure which. He ordered Tomo's body taken to the beach, displayed as warning. This is what happens to resistors, even brave ones, they die. Resistance is futile, but the order backfired, because the civilians who saw the body did not see futility. They saw an old man who had fought for 9 days, who had surrendered to save them, who had turned even his surrender into an attack, who had died killing. And that was not a warning about futility. It was inspiration about resistance. The civilians reached Kyushu on boats 3 days later. They carried stories. The Mongols are strong, but they can be hurt. An old man killed 59 of them. An old man with a cane. If grandfather could resist, so can we. Japan must prepare, must fight. The Mongols are not unstoppable. The stories spread, reached the shogunate, contributed to the decision to build coastal defenses, to mobilize samurai, to prepare for the coming invasion. The 9 days Tomo bought with his life became the time Japan used to prepare the defenses that would eventually defeat the Mongol invasions in 1274 and 1281. Commander Arben returned to the main Mongol fleet, reported to his superiors. Tsushima is secured, but resistance was heavier than expected. 1 Japanese fighter killed 59 soldiers using terrain and ambush tactics. If 1 old man can kill that many, the main invasion will face serious resistance. I recommend caution, recommend delays to study Japanese fighting methods. His superiors dismissed the concern initially. 59 casualties from 800 was acceptable, but other commanders reported similar problems. Japanese fighters who used terrain instead of honor, who ambushed instead of charging, who made Mongol advantages in discipline and numbers less effective. The reports accumulated, contributed to Kublai Khan's decision to delay the second invasion for 7 years to build a larger fleet, to prepare more thoroughly. The delay gave Japan 7 more years to prepare, 7 years that ultimately made the difference between conquest and survival. Tomo's name was never recorded in official histories. The shogunate documented the Battle of Tsushima as a loss. 80 samurai died defending the island. No mention of an old man who fought afterward. No mention of grandfather who killed 59 Mongols in 9 days. Official history was about samurai. Not retired samurai, not old men with canes, but unofficial history, the stories civilians told, the tales that spread through villages. Those remembered grandfather, remembered that age was not weakness, that experience was worth more than youth, that one person who understood terrain could kill an army that only understood charging. In the centuries after, Tomo's story survived in fragments, distorted, changed. Some versions made him younger, gave him magic powers, turned him into a folk hero with supernatural abilities. Other versions forgot his name, just called him the grandfather of Tsushima. Some versions inflated his kill count to hundreds, turned his 9 days into months, but the core remained. An old man fought the Mongol invasion alone, delayed them, hurt them, proved they could be resisted, and died killing. The story became a teaching tale used to train young samurai. Do not dismiss old warriors. They know things you have not learned. They see terrain you do not notice. They position themselves where you would never think to look. And in that perfect position, age does not matter. Only knowledge matters. Akiko survived the invasion, returned to Kyushu, lived with her sister. She died 12 years later, age 71, was buried in a small cemetery near the coast. Her grave marker read simply, Akiko, wife of Tomoe. No mention of what Tomoe did, no mention of grandfather, but she told the story to her nieces and nephews. Told them about the old man who walked away to fight 800 Mongols with a cane and a sword, who spent 9 days proving that being old meant being smart, not being weak, who surrendered to save civilians, then turned his surrender into one final attack, who died the way he lived, positioned perfectly, seeing what others missed, striking where enemies did not expect. Her telling kept the story alive in her family. And from that family the story spread. 237 Mongols died on Tsushima over 9 days, most killed by the Japanese garrison in the initial battle, but 59 killed by grandfather. 59 professional soldiers who had conquered nations, killed by a 63-year-old man with a bad leg and a cane. It was not the numbers that mattered. It was what the numbers proved, that the Mongols could be hurt, that Japan could resist, that sometimes the last person standing is the most dangerous one. Not despite being old, but because being old means having seen enough death to understand exactly how to cause it efficiently. And in those 9 days, Tomoe caused enough death to change history, to give Japan the time to prepare the defenses that would save the nation, all because he refused to die quietly, refused to accept that retirement meant irrelevance, refused to believe that age meant uselessness. He fought because he knew how, because he understood terrain better than anyone, and because in war, positioning is everything, and the perfect position for an old man is exactly where young warriors would never look. Standing in terrain he has studied for years, holding ground he knows intimately, waiting for the enemy to make the mistake of assuming grandfather is harmless, and then teaching them that the only thing more dangerous than a young warrior is an old warrior who has spent a lifetime learning where to stand and when to strike.